Catherine Halliday this evening as well, who's been logged in on the social media, is where we are live streaming this show as we always do every month. And in fact, I haven't even said we're a week later than normal. Usually we are the second Thursday of the month, but there was a swap for this month, but we'll be back. Putting myself on the spot here now. We are back with Healthy Minds, Better Lives next month on the 9th of November. So a little shorter turnaround for you. So you don't need to wait just as long, which is quite nice, I think. What do you think, Hayley?
Yeah, just to hear our lovely voices.
Anna's been listening to our lovely voices. And in fact, she's celebrating. We've just been talking about evaluating your life day, because that's one of the national days today. Hayley, it's another national day today as well.
What's that day today then?
It's National Gin and Tonic Day.
Well, it goes, hey, how evaluate your life while you're having a little gin and tonic.
There you go. Within moderation, drink responsibly, all of that jazz, but why not? And in fact, she's even sent a picture on the WhatsApp of a wonderful pink gin right there. Oh, delicious. And she's saying, wave your hands and sway to bring me sunshine. And yeah, she's saying that we're keeping her going on this Thursday evening. So let's carry on then, Hayley. On the screen, we've got other resources. We mentioned a Mind resource earlier. Websites, particularly Mind and Mind Pembrokeshire and Haverfordwest, are very helpful. But we get a lot of inspiration and potentially guidance from podcasts.
Now then, these are all, as long as podcasts have been around, I have only just started listening to podcasts. I don't know why. I've resisted it for a long time. I have my own, but I don't
know what you did.
It's awful. But I now have quite long car journeys taking my daughter back and forth to college. But it's so beneficial to have that time where I'm either learning or just listening to something that helps me support my well-being or something that I'm interested in. It's been really good, and I have found some free audiobooks on YouTube as well.
Free? That's nice. And what kind of audiobooks are you picking up then?
They tend to be more business books, but around mindset and kind of, I suppose they do fit, everything fits everything in, I think. Everyone's touching on mental health, everyone's touching on mindset. I had one today. Let me see if I can find a few. I was told about this one. Ooh, it's called The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard. That's the one I found today. I was told about that one. So I'm listening to that one at the moment.
Oh, The Power of Awareness. Now we've alluded to awareness and like that personal insight, to being more aware of yourself. It is actually quite a responsibility, isn't it, to be aware?
Excuse me.
Oh, you need a gin.
I should start again. But yeah, it is. It's one of those things that it's a bit, I suppose, a bit Marmite. Like, some people don't want to be aware, and some people do. But the benefits of being aware, it just allows you to make decisions that are good for you. So, like, for me, the podcast, I've really resisted. I've avoided it. I've gone that far, man, to avoid even looking at my podcast app on my laptop. But I've actually found sort of sweary ones are quite good. They make me laugh. But there's so many things you can find in there. Hobbies, they can be, it can be things that are not related to well-being at all, but things that you're interested in, that other people are doing, things that people do that you wouldn't consider doing at all, but it intrigues you anyway. It's amazing the kind of resources you can get from podcasts and the kind of support you can feel from listening to podcasts as well.
Yeah, very similar to radio in its medium, is that when you're listening to that podcast, whether it's in the car or in headphones whilst you're doing something else, in which does differentiate it from something like watching TV, because you can be doing day-to-day tasks whilst listening to something, whereas TV, you've got to be watching the screen. That's how I justify it anyway, my podcast usage. So you've got them in the headphones, but it means that the person that they're talking to is you. And all the like celebrities in different fields and all these hilarious people, these entertainers that are providing this material, it's for you as an individual. And because of that, I think that we do take what we hear in these podcasts a lot more personally, and we actually think, oh yeah, maybe I could start incorporating that into my life. Whereas when we're watching a TV, we know it's for everyone,
Yeah.
and this is for everyone as well. But it's that psychological shift of this is literally in my head. Well, what would happen if I thought about something differently, and what can I do from there? And you mentioned there about business podcasts and entertainment podcasts. As you say, they do all emanate around this theme of the human experience, if we're going to use a broad brush.
But isn't that nice? I'm sure we used to do that as a community before, and I think we've lost a bit of that. So having that back where you can actually choose what conversations you listen to. So whereas on TV, you're guided by whatever they tell you they're going to put on, this you can really have a schedule of things that totally interest you or are totally out of your comfort zone, and you wouldn't dare put it on TV, but in a podcast, you would happily stick it on your head with your headphones and listen to it.
Yeah. And because it's not broadcast overtly, it's in your head, that shame, that judgment, whatever people might think, oh, what are you listening to? It doesn't matter because it's for you. It's a very personal experience.
Absolutely. And you know, 24 hours a day, you could have podcasts instead of scrolling through social media mindlessly. You could be on a podcast. But there's amazing things that you can learn in 20 minutes or 10 minutes on a podcast that if you're on social media scrolling, you wouldn't get anything from it at all, apart from maybe a bit angry and a bit frustrated with people who are lying on there.
Yeah, because of course the podcast they want to convert listeners, of course, but they're there to build you up as opposed to sensationalize to a degree. To be careful as to what podcast you are listening to and make sure that they do have best interests at heart. But I am like some of the ones that I've fallen into and have been listening to for a long time. The one recent episode that I was listening to was the School of Greatness by Lewis Howes. And
That's the guy I was talking about earlier.
when you said Lewis and Bob Proctor, I was like, I bet it's Lewis Howes. And he was tipped to be an NFL American footballer, got injured in college, and that was his life. He was going to be a wide receiver in the NFL. He got injured, and all of a sudden, that dream did not become reality. And it's what we do in those situations. Do I A, sit down and mope about it, or do I B, do something about it? And he did something about it, and he realized that, well, if he did something about his circumstances, other people must have overcome their own circumstances, got out of their own way, and started thriving in the world that they're in. And his podcast is great because he is from the whole spectrum of people, from business leaders to athletes to actors. And one recent one that I listened to in the last week, it was Kevin Bacon, who, if you're of a certain age, is a brilliant actor. And if you're younger, he's the guy from the EE advert. But there's a wonderful thing, particularly in America and beyond, that Kevin Bacon is the most connected man on the planet. The 6 degrees of separation don't apply to him because he knows everyone. And this episode with Kevin Bacon was remarkable because Lewis really hones into kind of values and respect and who you are as a person, how that translates to a big team. Because when you're Kevin Bacon, the chances are is that you've got a big team around you. And when you're on movie sets, there's lots of people around you. When you're on music tours, there's lots of people around you. And is Kevin Bacon the one that we see the same as the Kevin Bacon that we see behind the scenes? And he was talking about just that mutual respect for everyone. We've all got our own skills. And so we need to utilize those skills to the best of that person's ability and buoy them up and make them feel recognized and acknowledged. And that's his whole gambit on life, is saying yes to things and building people up, essentially. And that's he says that's kind of the key to his success.
Yeah. And by listening to somebody's story like that, we make assumptions about celebrities, don't we? We see them in films and we kind of make all these ideas up in our head and we have fantasies about what we think their lifestyle is like. But actually listening to them on a simple podcast, because Lewis Howes is quite a simple podcast, isn't he? His interview with Bob Proctor was just completely simple. But just by knowing what they've been through and that they've been able to get a purpose outside of Hollywood, outside of the NFL. That really does give us hope, doesn't it? And as you were talking there, the one thing that came to my mind was how with podcasts, you get to decide your environment. So you get to decide what you're taking in your environment, and you get to be really intentional with it. You get to have the most motivational environment if you want it, the funniest environment if you want it, but you get a choice, and that can change your life in the same way that they were talking about what changed their lives.
Yeah. And you don't even have to follow all of their advice because like all of our circumstances are so unique to us. But what I find with all the podcasts that I listen to is that in the space of 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, there's usually one or two golden nuggets. And I think I hadn't considered that before. Or I can apply that to this situation that I'm currently in, or Christmas is coming up. Oh, maybe I could apply that for that period of time. So all in all, because as I said at the very beginning of this show, we're all different, but we are all ever so similar. And it's finding those tiny little changes that we think, oh, actually, what he's just said there, that's really resonated with me. How can I incorporate that into what I do on a day-to-day basis? And that kind of links back to the values. Listening to these people can really help us identify what our values are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think by listening to somebody else who's been through something similar to you, you get to become aware of something that you didn't know. Now you don't know what you don't know. But like you said, those little golden nuggets in those podcasts can be like, I didn't even think about that. Now I'm going to do that. It's going to change how I operate. And that is, I don't know, that feeling of I can take that and use it is immense. And yet, where would we choose to spend our time quite often these days? On social media or watching mindless TV.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? Oh, my thoughts just flown out of my head. One thing I will say, though, whilst it's on my mind, we haven't, just for clarity, we haven't been paid to mention any of these podcasts. These are literally what we listen to on a day-to-day basis. So if you're thinking, oh, this is all just one big shameless plug, it's not. These are genuinely podcasts that we listen to. And the other two, which you may have come across actually because of who they're led by and how well they're doing in the charts and in the podcast charts and whatnot, is the Diary of a CEO and the High Performance Podcast. Stephen Bartlett is the host of Diary of a CEO, who you may now know from, he's one of the new dragons in Dragon's Den. He's a young one. He made Social Chain a big, massive social networking company. He's left that now, and he's now a philanthropist and an entrepreneur, and now invests in other companies. And he gets high-profile people from all sectors onto his show. And then the High Performance Podcast is Jake Humphries, who, depending on your age, is a children's TV presenter, or depending on your age, is the guy from BT Sport. And what I love about Jake's story in particular is, so Stephen Bartlett was from, I'm not going to say deprived, but he certainly had struggles growing up, went to university, wasn't for him. And I love that even though it wasn't for him, he didn't just go with it. Like they've had to find themselves and who they actually are. And Jake Humphries doing the same thing. He shared, God, it must be over a year ago now, a picture of his rejection letter for a presenter job. And now he's one of the most prolific presenters that we have in sports at the moment. He went from, but he changed from learning the craft to doing children's TV. And it was very much the wisdom then that, oh, if you go into children's TV, you're not going to do anything else. You're stuck now. You are a children's TV presenter. But he moved away from that and managed to get into sports. And then all of a sudden he was the head of Formula One. And then he moved to football. And I think he's still doing the football now, and he's moved away and he's now set up a production company, which is covering the Rugby World Cup for S4C. And what I love about these podcasts is that you get to learn that whole trajectory and that whole story. And it gives me hope that, well, the circumstances that I'm in now, who knows what's around the corner. And hearing all of these people's stories makes you realize that life isn't very linear. And you mentioned that earlier, Hayley, about, am I on the wrong train? Am I on the wrong bus? Listening to other people can actually normalize the situation that we're in.
And that's the power of humanity, though, isn't it? And sharing experiences. And I think that, again, that's something that we've lost as communities have got bigger and broader, and we've kind of lost the communication. We don't sit across the wall now. I very, very rarely see my neighbours. I don't speak to some of them. But when I was growing up, we knew everybody in the street. Maybe we didn't see everybody in the street, but you'd be sitting in a sunny day, you'd see many of the parents out, and you see the kids out playing. But that doesn't happen anymore. So podcasts are that opportunity to create your community in a way that it is a little bit disjointed, I suppose, because the person's not actually there. But it does allow you to learn things that maybe you wouldn't learn, and allow you to understand things you wouldn't understand without that connection with somebody.
Yeah. And it may inspire you to take that step, to take that action, to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. Going back to part one of this show this evening, to go to your boss and make suggestions about either workplace well-being or about a project that you think, oh, why don't we try doing it this way? And you never know, like you might revolutionize the process or the system that you're in. Not everything is a groundbreaking idea, but some things could be just the thing, the spark to get something moving again. And I think that the more that we withhold ourselves, the more difficult it is to get to where we want to be. And I personally find podcasts are a great way of unlocking elements about me and giving me confidence to put myself in those situations even more because other people have done it.
I love that idea. I think the unlocking, sometimes we need something that does it for us because we don't know how to do it. And then we listen to a podcast or somebody's inspirational story, and you kind of unlock that barrier that was there before, and then you're just able to move on to the next level.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. It's like having a non-stop supply of This Is Your Life. Essentially, that back then that would have been the only way we would have heard about all these people and their stories. We'll get a big red book next time. If you're listening or you're watching this, do you listen to podcasts? Do you read autobiographies? Because that's another way of learning about people and what they've overcome in more detail, actually. Graham Norton's autobiography, So Graham, is one that's stuck in my mind because you learn about this young boy near Cork, and I was like, now he is Graham Norton, like he's amazing. But you learn about that upbringing and how they've overcome it and who they worked with to get to certain places and the gambles that they took. Not every decision that we make is going to work, but they take a gamble, and some of them are going to work and some of them aren't, and that's okay too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm a little bit risk averse, depending on what it is. But when you hear somebody, when you listen to somebody who has taken that risk or taken a risk that's similar to what you're thinking about, that does give you that sort of motivation to take that step, maybe to push yourself out there, because we're all trying to get out of our comfort zones. We have to be, because not a lot happens within the comfort zone. We have to get out of them to better our lives.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. If I can give, if you want to listen to a podcast, let us know which one you go to. Let us know your feedback. We would love to hear. And any thoughts you have between now and the next show, you can email studio@purewestradio.com. That's studio@purewestradio.com. And if there's a topic that you want us to cover in future shows, then please do get in touch, because we would love to hear from you and try and give our perspective to hopefully alleviate whatever situation you're in. Podcast is one way for revealing ourselves. Another way, Hayley, is rap music.
Okay.
And rappers are very autobiographical in nature, and they talk about their lives, and it's usually a bit showy and a bit boasty. But you've recently caught up with a rapper who's actually got lots of raps and verses about his own upbringing, about his literal scars that he has, and the life that he was involved in, and the adverse effect that had on his mental health. And we're going to hear from him very shortly. But do you mind just introducing who you talked to a couple of weeks ago, and what the kind of an overall theme as to what people can expect now?
Yeah, so I spoke to Professor Green. I interviewed him regarding a project that the government are putting together to help people with their finances in the current crisis. And it's all around mental health and making sure that people are looking after themselves in lots of different ways, but making sure that they are getting everything they're entitled to.
There we go. If you're watching the show on social media, you're going to have to tune over now to one of our ways that's available online. So I'm going to put them up on the screen for you. If I can find it for you, you can listen live. There it is. Listen live on a smart speaker if you have one. Play Pure West Radio on the mobile app if you haven't already downloaded it, along with your brand new podcasts. Or you can go to purewestradio.com and you can listen live to when Hayley caught up with Professor Green, and of course, still to come this evening as well, a delivery about glaucoma, signs and symptoms, and what you can do about it. So here it is. This is Professor Green and Hayley talking about this new initiative.
First question, Professor Green. Thanks for meeting with me. Would you like to